And welcome back, everyone, to episode 27 of the Sports Coverage Podcast. My name is Andrew, and I'm alongside my co host, Vince. We are welcoming back for a big episode this week, Super Bowl Sunday today, while we're filming. And as always, we have a ton to talk about this week. So I say we just get started. And as hopefully many of you know, Super Bowl 49ers versus Chiefs in Las Vegas. It's going to be a crazy game, and these two teams are here for a reason. So we're going to start with, I think, just the simplest question you can ask about this. Who is winning this game, Vince?
Look, I think both of these teams, they come from, a lot. I mean, they have really good players. Don't get me wrong, but I think the 49ers have better role players. I mean, when you think of the 49ers, you think of Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, just guys like that in your offense can lead to victory, and especially in a big game like a Super Bowl. I think they can definitely help Brock Purdy win in his second year as an NFL quarterback. So I think I'm going to personally take the 49ers. I think that the Chiefs can obviously win this game no matter what. But again, I just think the 49ers have the edge on this game.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you. And I think it's both that I want the 49ers to win, but also I agree that they have more players who can make it happen compared to maybe just the Kelsey Mahomes connection going on for the offense. Of course, Isaiah Pacheco is one of the best running backs in the league, but so is Christian McCaffrey, who won Offensive Player of the Year, which we'll get to in a second. But I think that, and if you look at the 49ers defense too, they have, I think, a better shot at defending against that Travis Kelsey connection with Patrick Mahomes. So if you can lock down two guys on the Chiefs, then the 49ers win. But the Chiefs need to lock down a lot more on the 49ers if they want to pull out a victory here.
I mean, I will say something though. I mean, the Chiefs do have a really good dynamic, set defense. I mean, they have a really good defensive coordinator. Which I mean, don't get me wrong. I think playing against probably one of the best offenses could lead to a loss. But their defense is well set. I mean, when you think of guys like Willie Gay or Chris Jones, you think those are two guys that I would love to have on my defense, especially in a big game like this. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs win. But again, I think it's going to have to come from a huge amount of stops from this defense in order to win this game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think I think it's going to definitely be kind of similar to what we saw last year with the Eagles, because the 49ers, if you're looking at where they are now, they have a fairly similar team to what the Eagles looked like going into the Super Bowl last year. And the Chiefs were very easily able to take care of that. And I think the 49ers are definitely a better team than the Eagles were last year, even though like they both had like crazy superstar players. But I think that the thing that could fail for the 49ers and the first thing that would fail for the 49ers would be Brock Purdy and his ability to like figure out plays and scramble and stuff like that. Because if he's not able to get out of situations, there's going to be interception after interception for the 49ers, which definitely is going to kill their offense immediately.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, and just for the Chiefs, I think if like I said earlier, if you just shut down that one connection between Kelsey and Mahomes, I think that it's as good as over for them because they need that to survive. And of course, you got Rice, who has looked ridiculously good this year, and I think that he is a very good receiver for Mahomes to throw to. But he's always going to be looking for Travis first, so we'll see what happens there. So, just it's definitely going to be an interesting game. So my question to you is Christian McCaffrey going to be used more than normal in this game because of they might be scared that Brock Purdy's going to kind of fall apart like he did in that Ravens game a couple weeks ago, or do you think CMC is going to kind of be held back a bit and let Brock Purdy throw to his receivers more?
I think that they will let Brock Purdy sling the rock. I mean, you think of, where you are. You're in the Super Bowl. And I think that, it even said when I was watching ESPN earlier today, they were saying, let Brock Purdy just have his moment. I mean, just think about it. When you want to, he's your quarterback. Why wouldn't you want to trust in him? I mean, even though he's a second-year quarterback, still you got to believe in him. And I think that's what the team said, this whole week. Like, Brock Purdy is still that guy. I mean, he can definitely lead a team to a Super Bowl in no matter of time, and I think he can get the job done. But again, if he does fall apart, I think they would definitely need to be using guys like Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey in the running game.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. And like you saw how quickly the 49ers fell apart in that big game, which we thought was going to be the preview of the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago against the Ravens. Brock Purdy, I think, threw 3 or 4 interceptions in that game, and
Yeah.
even after Lamar Jackson accidentally getting a safety, it's like the same. It's the same thing. I think that the 49ers are definitely less consistent than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs can play under pressure better, especially Patrick Mahomes. So if it comes down to a situation where they're down by 6 or 3, the Chiefs are probably going to be able to edge it out in the last couple minutes of the game. And yeah, so but just some quick thing about the Super Bowl. For the first year ever, there'll be a Nickelodeon cast hosted by Ian Eagle and famous Nick characters such as SpongeBob and Dora the Explorer as their analysts. So if you're getting bored of the normal broadcasts, definitely check that out because I think it's going to be a fun time. So this week, of course, because it's Super Bowl week, it was also awards week in the NFL, and I think we did a pretty good job of predicting some of these awards. Unfortunately for you, one of them didn't really go your way with Offensive Player of the Year, and we kind of thought it was a lock for your guy, but that didn't end up happening. And of course, we got to see all the guys on the red carpet. But first, I just want to shout out the fan of the year, who is a YouTuber, Tom Grossi, who hosts Packcast and did 30 and 30 for St. Jude this year. He has grown a lot this year, and it's really cool to see him up on the big stage, and he helped announce Coach of the Year this year, which is really cool. So first, Offensive Player of the Year, I think this is the one that kind of is a pain for you to say, but Christian McCaffrey walks away with this one even after Tyreek Hill being the guy who we all thought was going to win because once again he had an insane season with the Miami Dolphins. So was this the right one, or do you still think Tyreek Hill should have won this one?
I don't hate the pick. I think if it was going to be anyone, I think it had to be Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Tyreek Hill, listen, he is a phenomenal player, and I think he did lead the league in yards, out of any game. And I think missing a couple of those games this season alone kind of led to him not winning either Offensive Player of the Year or MVP. I think we all knew that Lamar was going to win MVP, but look, I think Tyreek Hill could have definitely won Offensive Player of the Year. But look, CMC is a really dominant player, and I'm not surprised. I mean, they're in the Super Bowl for a reason, just because of him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Defensive Player of the Year, I think this is who I said was going to win this one. And I think that Watt was also a very good option, which we also discussed. But Myles Garrett walks away with this one. And I think that this is another pick where it could have gone one or two ways. But I think that this is probably the right move if you look at kind of just how the season ended up going. What do you think?
I mean, I will say, I think it was very surprising that Myles Garrett, out of all people, won. I look no hate against Myles Garrett, but I think it would have been better off giving it to T.J. Watt just due to the fact that he is probably one of the most dominant players in the league right now, let alone just defense. I mean, Myles Garrett is strong. Don't get me wrong; he is one of I mean, he's probably one of the best Cleveland Browns right now currently, and maybe even all time if he keeps playing the way he's going. But I don't hate the pick, and I think he deserves it pretty much.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. For MVP, this one was kind of just a giveaway. And if you look at the votes, I think it was like I don't remember exactly how many votes it was per person, but like it was all of the votes except one went to Lamar and that one went to Josh Allen. So it was a close race if you want to look at it that way. But Lamar Jackson deserves to walk away with this one. And I don't think the playoff loss was completely his fault. He played it the best he could, but the Chiefs just overpowered him. But still, if we're talking about the regular season, Lamar Jackson was the best player in the league by far. And I think that you would definitely agree with that, right?
Yeah, I think he deserved this award. I mean, Lamar Jackson is probably the most dominant player in the league right now, and he proved it. I mean, I know he did lose in the AFC Championship, and don't get me wrong, it was a tough loss for a Ravens team that has been dealing with a lot the last couple of weeks. Losing their defensive coordinator, and the stuff going on with Zay Flowers. But I get back to this. Look, Lamar is he's the one that carries this team to victory and victory and victory. And I think if they would have won that game against the Chiefs on a couple weeks ago, I think they definitely could have won a Super Bowl. But again, look, Lamar is a very dominant player, and I will not be surprised if he gets his third MVP in the years to come.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And this is second one already, which is crazy. Comeback player of the year. I think we both got this one as well, and I agree kind of with what the NFL did here, even though Damar Hamlin had an amazing, miraculous comeback. But Joe Flacco coming off the couch to then push the Browns into the playoffs, and unfortunately, they did kind of get blown out there in the first round. But Joe Flacco still saved my fantasy team. He's a good guy, so I'm happy to see that he won.
Yeah,
For
I definitely
offensive
think.
rookie,
I
yeah,
think. Look, I just want to say something real quick. I think Joe Flacco definitely deserved this. I mean, you take a look at where he was a couple weeks. I mean, before when the season started, he was on his couch. He wasn't even. What was he doing? And out of nowhere, he
driving his
came and
kids to
just.
school, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, look, and also another thing is that Joe Flacco's kids were like saying, they definitely didn't get the experience in the Joe Flacco that we got to experience. So it's definitely great to see, the kids get to, see what the father has been doing for so many years. And he got to prove it. I know he lost in the first round against the Texans, but it really was a special moment for him and his family. So I think he definitely deserved it.
yeah, I definitely agree. So offensive rookie of the year, I think that this one is maybe one of the closest ones we had to look at because there's one guy who's breaking records and another guy who kind of defied a lot of odds to get to where they were. It's CJ Stroud walking away with the win here, which is interesting. So do you think Puka got snubbed here, or do you think this is the right move?
I think this is the completely right move. Look, CJ Stroud was even in MVP talk for a little bit. I mean, he is probably one of the best rookie quarterbacks we've seen in a long time. I mean, CJ Stroud really proved it, and I know that they lost to the Ravens, in the divisional round. But if they would have won that, I think we could be talking about, one of the best quarterbacks ever to play the game in the years to come. I think CJ Stroud definitely deserved this. I don't think Puka would have won either way. I mean, I know he did, break two records, but that does not compare to what CJ Stroud has been doing to this team. I mean, you take a look at where the Texans were last season compared to this season, he definitely deserves this award.
Yeah. I definitely agree, and it's definitely it was crazy, and the Panthers are definitely kicking themselves because of just the absolute how terrible their number one pick played compared to CJ Stroud, and they're even getting made fun of by the guys the NFL are hiring to do the NFL awards, like Keegan Michael Key got on stage and said, Taylor Swift is in Tokyo right now, and the only people further from the Super Bowl than Taylor Swift are the Carolina Panthers. So, they're just kind of getting beat up, and this is just another nail in the coffin for them about how terribly this season went. For defensive rookie of the year, once again, we go down to Texas. Will Anderson Jr., who they traded up for in the picks, wins defensive rookie of the year. Both those guys down in Texas with the Texans. So it's cool. I think that Will Anderson, that was the right pick. You would agree, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're doing completely what the Jets did last season with defensive rookie of the year and offensive rookie of the year. I'm not surprised that Will Anderson won this award. I thought otherwise when we were doing predictions maybe a month ago. But look, Will Anderson is a very dynamic player, and I think he will grow. I mean, he's you take a look at he was shouting out in his awards speech. He was like thanking his defensive teammates. I mean, and that's the thing. You get to grow from the game of football, and I think with his teammates getting him to just helping him get better as a player it'll only help him going forward. So I think it was definitely a great pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So last big award to talk about, Coach of the Year. I think this one is another close one that could have gone a couple ways, but Dan Campbell definitely deserves a shout out, but he just failed on a level of epic proportions in the NFC Championship game. Kevin Stefanski wins Coach of the Year, and I think that this is definitely the right one. I would think.
Yeah. I mean, look, I like the pick, and I think the Browns definitely grew from this. And I mean, he did already win a Coach of the Year a couple of years ago, just a couple of years back. But look, I think the Browns are just gonna get better. I don't know if this. I mean, they did really good this year, but I think when Deshaun Watson ends up coming back from injury, they can just be better as always. I mean, Sean Watson is not the greatest quarterback to have right now, but they did pay him a lot of money. I don't think he deserved all that. But look, I think this was definitely a right move, and I think that we can see something from the Browns in years to come.
Yeah, yeah. So NFL Hall of Fame inductees also came out this week, which is they're just kind of piling on everything that we have to talk about for them this week. But you got a couple guys, and I'll just go through the list real quick, and then if you have anyone you want to comment on, go ahead. So Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, Julius Peppers, Patrick Willis, Randy Granishar, and Steve McMichael. So I think this is a pretty good list here. Don't do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely surprised to see two Miami Hurricanes. I mean, I'm pretty happy to see Devin Hester and Andre Johnson both get into the Hall of Fame. I think they both of them deserved it. I mean, I know there's a lot of other names like Julius Peppers, Patrick Willis, and Dwight Freeney, but look, I just think Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, they those two I think deserve that. I mean, they're probably one of the best respected receivers in the game ever to play the sport, and I think like when it comes to just receivers, they back in their time when they were playing. I mean, when you think of Devin Hester, you think of that that Super Bowl return that was phenomenal against the Colts and just things like that. I think like those are notable moments that can just lead to Hall of Fame careers like both of them had.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that this is a pretty cool class that they're gonna have joining the NFL Hall of Fame this year. So the NBA is jam packed as well as the NBA trade deadline this week. So we're just going to go through a couple picks that happened on the day of the deadline. So let's start with Bucks trade Robin Lopez to the Kings for cash considerations and draft rights. So not a huge one, but these are all moves that happen. Daniel Gafford goes to the Mavericks from the Wizards. Let's see. Mavs and the Thunder swap picks. The Thunder, everyone talks about how many first round picks do they have? 11 over the next 3 or 4 years?
I don't even, they have at least 10.
Yeah. So they swapped picks with the Mavs, which is yeah. Patrick Beverley goes to the Bucks from the 76ers in exchange for Cameron Payne in a 2027 second round pick. And the Nets acquire Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young from the Raptors in exchange for Spencer Dinwiddie. And yesterday, Spencer Dinwiddie ended up signing with the Lakers on a deal. So just any comments on Dinwiddie?
I think the best trade so far probably was the Nets, acquiring Schroeder from the Raptors. I think, that trade itself leads to a lot. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie is now part of a Lakers team who is already as strong as many thought they were going to be. I mean, you think of, what they have done. They won the in-season tournament, which was pretty phenomenal for them. I mean, I know it's not that big of an award, but still, I mean, they're just getting it's building momentum for their team going forward. And I mean, I was watching the Nuggets game just a couple of days ago. I don't know the exact final score because I went to bed, but that was a pretty hell of a game. And I think, guys like, LeBron and AD, they showed up big, especially AD, who, has been battling injuries his whole career, especially throughout his Lakers career, who has just been continuing to push and push and push and has just been gotten better going forward. And, I think this team is going to get better acquiring Spencer Dinwiddie, and so the Nets. I mean, Dennis Schroeder is, I would say, one of the best players, I think, when it comes to guard positions. I mean, the Nets they like using their guards. Don't get me wrong. Guys like Cam Thomas and Mikal Bridges. I think Dennis Schroeder will be a good coming off the bench player, just due to the fact because they have already two great guards. But Dennis Schroeder will definitely help that rotation, definitely help their depth.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So Thunder make another move. They get Gordon Hayward from the Hornets for 3 players, a 2024 second and a 2025 second. Neither of those were the Thunder's actual picks. They were from the Rockets and 76ers. So once again, just trying to get rid of some of those picks. Once again, the Nets are in on a trade, in a 3-team trade actually with the Suns, Grizzlies, and Nets. The Suns get Royce O'Neal and David Roddy, Grizzlies get a 2026 first round pick swap with the Suns and Utah Watanabe. Nets get Jordan Goodwin, another player, draft rights, and 3 future second round picks. So, I think the Nets are in an in between here. They tried the big three experiment, which ended up failing, and now they have kind of the remnant of that. And I think they're trying to build up their picks again. And yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. Anything to say about this one?
I don't love the trade. I mean, I think Yuta Watanabe would have been a great depth player for your team. I don't hate that the Grizzlies even tried trading for him or tried getting him because, he came from the Raptors and, he just grew joining the Nets the last couple of years. And I think, things like that led to victory. But I don't hate it again. I don't hate it at all. But I think that the Nets really didn't win this trade. I mean, we're talking about who won the trade in this specific point. I don't think anyone really won the trade. I mean, if anyone wins, it could be the Nets because they got picks. But besides that, I don't really like the trade at all.
Yeah. I don't know. It's okay, but I like the Dennis Schroeder trade a lot, like you said.
Oh yeah, I think both of those. I think that's a phenomenal trade.
Yeah. So the Mavs also made moves at the deadline. So the Mavs got PJ Washington a second in 2024 and 2028, and the Hornets get Seth Curry and Grant Williams and a 2027 first. And already PJ Washington, I think, looked pretty good in his debut game with the Mavs, and I think that this was definitely a good move to make.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I really like this trade, and I know this is kind of surprising, but I think the Hornets did win this trade. Not only are they getting a first round pick in 2027, but you're getting 2 players who are underrated, I will say. I mean, Seth Curry is going back to his hometown of Charlotte, where his father did end up playing, and I think that just it builds a sense of emotion, but at the same time, you're getting someone like Grant Williams who had a hell of a playoff series last year for the Celtics. So I think the Hornets definitely won this trade. Do I hate it for the Mavs? No, I think that the Mavs definitely win because PJ Washington is again, everyone that's getting traded in this trade are all underrated. I mean, PJ Washington is a very good caliber player that I think the Hornets needed to get rid of because he was not doing good over there, and I think the Hornets getting Grant Williams and Seth Curry for him is definitely a win-win. So I think both of these teams win in this trade.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Knicks are also making moves. They get Bojan and Alec Burks from the Pistons in exchange for 4 players, 2 future second-round picks, and cash considerations. So the Knicks kind of building up again, hopefully for that strong playoff push. And OG Anunoby did have surgery and will be out for about 2 weeks. So I think that they're just kind of gearing up and getting ready to keep pushing forward because they did lose to the Pacers last night, which did not look good.
I like this trade. I mean, Bojan Bogdanovic is a very, very good player, and he's playing for a really bad organization in the Pistons. And I think the Pistons getting guys like Quentin Grimes, who are very young, and Evan Fournier's not that young, but getting a guy, again, like Quentin Grimes, I think, that will help your team just win. I mean, he's very young, and I know that he did do some stuff with the Knicks, not much as what we thought he would do. But, again, I think the Pistons did not win this trade as much as the Knicks did, but getting rid of 2 guys that weren't helping your team, it's great to notice that, and I think this is a good trade going into this middle of the season.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that, and I think the Knicks are kind of just looking to keep building up. So Lowry is going to join the 76ers after the buyout, so he's returning to his hometown, and I think that this is going to be a good spot for him. And, he looked pretty strong this season. I think I'm excited to see him play with the 76ers because, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago and with our guests in the last 2 weeks, teams can't rely on that 1 or 2 guys like Embiid and Maxey in the 76ers. So I think Lowry is definitely a piece that's going to help keep this puzzle together.
Well, I mean, I don't look as a Heat fan. I mean, I did really like Lowry. I mean, we had a lot of ups and downs with him the last 2 years. I mean, especially in the last couple of playoff runs, whether it was the 2022 playoff run or the 2023 playoff run. Lowry had some ups and downs, but he was a great 3-ball shooter, and I think that's really what this team needs. I mean, Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey can't be there every step of the way for this team, and I think getting a guy like Lowry, who's a veteran, and knows what to do and has playoff experience, especially the last couple of years playing for the Heat, he could definitely help this team win. And I think this is a great move for the 76ers.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that that's, like I said, something that the 76ers kind of need. So, real quick, dunk contest is next week because so is the NBA All-Star game. So, people competing are going to be Jaylen Brown of the Celtics, Jaime Jaquez Jr. of the Heat, Mac McClung again from the G League, who won last year, and Jacob Toppin from the Knicks. Just real quick, who do you think is going to win the dunk contest?
It's hard because I know Jaylen Brown is a very, very good dunker, and so can Mac McClung. But I really like Jaime Jaquez Jr. in this. I might be a little biased, but look, I'm really gonna make my decision now, and I think that Mac McClung will go for his second in a row, just because due to his fact of his dunking abilities, it's really phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Mac McClung too. Let's go for the back-to-back. So, also, just real quick, some news that just broke. Apparently, the Eagles are open to trading Hassan Reddick, and he's going to be looking for trades now. So, I think the Eagles are just kind of in desperation mode now because they need to fix whatever happened this year.
Especially losing
Um,
Jason Kelsey, it's gonna be hard for them.
yeah. So, MLB, the pitchers and catchers, I'm so excited. Report next week, and spring training starts a few weeks after that. This is the time of year baseball is coming back. It's getting warmer out, and people are getting suspended. So, former Mets GM gets suspended for the 2024 season for his improper use of the IR, which we talked about a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, there you go. And he's already been let go from the Mets, so he doesn't have a job anyway, but he can't get one now for the 2024 season. Clayton Kershaw, as expected, signs a 2-year deal with the Dodgers, who are still spending money somehow and have still spent more money than any other team in the league. You know, Clayton Kershaw, famously terrible in the postseason, but still one of the best pitchers of our current generation. So, Vince, is this the right move for the Dodgers to hang on to him?
He's getting old, don't get me wrong, but I think that Clayton Kershaw signing a 2-year deal is the right move. I mean, not like you're gonna sign like a huge deal like 10, 11 years like Bobby Witt Jr. did this last week, where he signed for a crazy deal. I don't know the exact amount of money, but I think signing a guy like for a 2-year deal is the right way to go. So I think Clayton Kershaw definitely is gonna, I think it's just gonna be, he's playing with his team that he's always played for, and I think this is definitely gonna be a right move for them. But his career is
Yeah,
coming to
I
an end, so
definitely.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. So we have another retirement this week. So the famous Cleveland Guardian now, I guess, and former New York Yankee Corey Kluber retires after winning two Cy Youngs in his illustrious career. And I always remember when he pitched that no hitter against the Rangers a couple of years ago when he was a Yankee. So, Corey Kluber, all the best to him as we uh, I think that he definitely is a legend in the MLB right now, and he definitely is a guy that we'll remember because he was that ace for so many years in Cleveland. So I think
yeah.
good for him. Yeah. Adolis Garcia agrees to a 2-year, $14 million contract with the Rangers to avoid arbitration. Again, the Rangers need to be making these moves because Adolis Garcia really fueled that World Series push and is probably the reason they won this year. So, as always, we're going to finish off every episode with fast facts, and this week we have 3 of them. So, we'll talk about them real quick. So, the NFL spent a reported $800,000 on improvements to the Super Bowl field in Las Vegas ahead of the game today, after pictures of the Raiders field a month ago showed bare patches and sand in the end zone, and really the field looked terrible this entire season. So, is it going to hold up, Vince, or is it going to be a repeat of last year?
Look, I think this was needed. I don't like that they spent a lot, almost $1 million on renovations for the field. But I think $800,000 is the right amount of money I think you could do for the field for the Super Bowl. I mean, it's one of the best events in sports history. When things like the World Cup or the NBA Finals, or just when it comes to renovations of fields or just the courts or anything, I think this is needed. So definitely a nice move for the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, let's hope it works. So, as you mentioned last week, Caitlin Clark is very close to the record and now only 39 points away from breaking the all-time women's college basketball scoring record. Maybe that will happen today. There is a game at 1 o'clock when we're filming, so maybe by tomorrow she will have broken the record. So definitely look out for that. And lastly, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart have started a podcast called The Roommate Show because obviously they have to capitalize off of that that podcast type right now. And of course, Jalen Brunson is having a career year this year. So it's very excited to see that he's kind of making those moves. Just anything else you got to comment on today?
I don't know. I mean, I want to talk about Caitlin Clark real quick. I think that her mark in WM in college in women's college basketball is phenomenal. Even if she doesn't, I mean, she probably will break the record. There's just no way she won't. But she is, I will say, probably the best women's college basketball player of all time. I mean, people talk about her like not like everywhere you go, everyone talks about her, and I think she will definitely break the record one day. And I think she will be crowned the greatest women's basketball player to ever play the sport, college or WNBA.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that it's going to be a big, like Dylan, our guest, said last week, it is going to be big for the WNBA to have her up there in, I think next year, right? She's a senior now.
Yeah. She's a senior, so next year
So
she's
next
off
year.
to the WNBA.
Nice. Yeah. So that's pretty much going to do it for this week's episode of the Sports Coverage Podcast. As always, thank you everyone so much for listening. We'll have clips on Instagram and, of course, announcements when each of these episodes are posted, and like and subscribe here on YouTube, audio only on Spotify. So thank you everyone so much for listening. My name is Andrew alongside my co-host Vince, and we will see you next week.